final question for you is, do you have any questions for me before we get started?
Uh, no, man, I'm really excited. I saw the reviews and feedback you were getting, and I just like, man, this seems like a really good opportunity. So I'm just here to learn, absorb it all in, take it like a sponge, and just be the best tech I can be for my wife and my team, and just improve.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about, and we can go ahead and hop into it.
Cool, cool.
All right, let's go.
All right. Some point we'll go over no man's land positioning, but that's not something immediate we have to cover. Okay, and that's just general spam at the moment. We'll talk a bit about crosser placement as well.
Okay.
Shields have been pretty decent. Watch the res here, right? So whenever this is a bit of an awareness thing.
Mhm.
Um, and whenever somebody dies, we gotta watch if they have a mercy, right? So team composition dictates playstyle.
Mhm.
Never would have ever needed to pay attention to what they're running if they didn't have a mercy, right? Mercy means that now we have to pay attention to what it is they're running, and then we have to pay attention to the res, because then we can shut it down for free. And because if you're paying attention, or you can just run around this corner, shoot her in the head, and then she's dead. And then you stop her from resing, and you get a free kill out of it, all from just paying attention to what composition they're on and paying attention to the res, right? Because that's the only time you ever need to watch for dead bodies and things like that.
Yeah, the mercy res, we struggle with that
Mm.
sometimes. I'll be honest.
Hmm. Yep, watch feeding Sigma's grasp, because that's just going to give him extra health if you're doing that. Probably could have also been smacking Sigma earlier too, when he was a little bit closer, get some extra damage in.
Okay.
Once again, kind of feeding his grasp, giving him some extra health. It's not too bad. Good job getting him. Maybe could have even played a little bit more aggressive, because it's like a 3v1 and he's 1 HP, right? So you could even just be pushing into his face and trying to kill him,
Mhm.
so you don't give him the chance to get away. But other than that, so far pretty solid hold.
Okay.
Nice. Oh, some missed shots. Oh,
Yeah.
can we get the res? Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So see, that's what we struggle on. She still got that res, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's just watching her, because you can see her, like, and just being, just expecting it, right? Because we kill him, and we can kind of see Mercy coming in. And notice how you reload here when you're down, and you see Mercy flying in, and you reload at 80 bullets left, and we duck
Yeah.
around the corner, right?
Mhm.
So we could be peeking and shooting at her, but we just reload it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do have a reload like fear or something like that. Yeah.
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 Especially when you have you're on a tank with a lot of bullets. Honestly, it's not all gonna be a big deal a lot of the times. It's you reload it when you run out of ammo, when you're low on ammo, when you when you have nothing to shoot at, right? So if you have a lull in the fight where there's a good time to take a pause, oh excuse me, when there's a good time to take a pause, then you can go for it. But if there's there's people to be actively shooting at, then a lot of times you just want to keep shooting.
Mhm.
All right, so they got a pick. Might want to start backing. Yeah, probably a good choice. All right, so here we just end up getting sniped from behind a ton. Um, we just turn our backs. Firstly, we're running around, and notice like how far away from our teammates we are, because they kind of killed all
Yeah.
of our teammates. So we're kind of down our teammates. Might have been a good idea just to run back to point sooner, because if you ran
Mhm.
back to point sooner, then maybe you could help kill the Reaper and just regroup with your team.
Mhm.
Um, but we kind of are lagging behind a little while here. And then after lagging, we start to run away, but the problem is that we're just like running straight where they can see us, right? Like, look, they can just see us this whole path. What if we just like ran to the side here and then ran forwards, like this, right? And
Yeah.
now they can't see you. So just using
Mhm.
cover to your advantage so that they can't just snipe you as you're running in. Um, maybe could have even like taken a second to come grab the health pack, maybe.
I didn't know it
Um,
was there. Wow.
yep, so that kind of thing could have been helpful. Coming out of your Omnic and placing a shield maybe could have also been like behind you could have been helpful, but overall that was just
Yeah, yeah.
not that any of that would have changed the fight because they're already up a ton.
Mhm.
Oh. Once again, let's take a look. Yeah, our team is just kind of all over the place at the moment, which
Yeah.
is okay. I mean, like if you have teammates all over the place, just gotta work with it. Think
Mhm.
spamming is just the right move, trying to find something to make happen. Nice. All right, so let's talk about how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost the fight. This is going to be one of those things that probably will be really critical towards ranking up. This will be like one of those types of things that could, if implemented properly, rank you up like a whole rank,
Mhm.
or things like that, because it's just really critical in
Mhm.
Overwatch. So how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight? Well, the basics of this. There's more advanced stuff. Maybe we can go into the more advanced stuff in one of the future sessions, but let's keep it to the basics for now because I don't want to overwhelm you and we're starting off at a lower level. Um, Basics is watch kill feed. Top right corner of your screen. If
Mhm.
you are up or down 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage.
Mhm.
In the case of advantage or a disadvantage, you play more aggressive or more passive. So if you're out a person, you just run in a little bit more. If you're down a person, go back up a little bit more.
Mhm.
If you are up or down 2 to 3 people, then that is a one fight or a lost fight. If you've won the fight, you go extra aggro. You push, 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 right? So in
Mhm.
this case, when this is a one fight where we're up 3 people, yeah, we're maybe like still kind of hanging back a tiny little bit, right? Like we're
Mhm.
up a ton here, right? At let's see, at what point is this a one fight? At this point, this is a one fight right now
Mhm.
because we're up 2 people. Mercy's 1 HP, right?
Mhm.
So this is, and we've just used 2 ultimates. This is a one fight immediately right now. So therefore we can play more aggressive. But notice how we kind of like sit back a hair. We're not pushing as much. And then the next big no no is you don't use ultimates in a won or lost fight, because if you use it in a lost fight, then it's not probably not going to change the fact that you lost and you're probably still going to lose. And if you've won the fight, then it's not going to change the fact that you've won. You've already won. So there's no need
Mhm.
for it when you could just save it for the next one. So no ultimates in won or lost fights. And then also if you've lost the fight, then you get out if you can. And if you can't, you let them kill you. That way you don't stagger and you can kind of keep in sync with your team.
Mhm.
Um,
Makes sense.
so here we end up ulting when there's 2 people alive, right? So this is a one fight where where we have at least 5 people, right? 5v2. Probably could just clean up these 2 kills pretty easy without an ultimate, and yet we're popping an ult on it, which just means we won't have it for the next fight. And this is over ulting. Now we used a bunch of ults, and then they will now, instead of us being even on ults the next fight, now they'll have the ult advantage next fight.
Mhm. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think there's just me working on my awareness too. I didn't even realize
Mm-hmm.
that we were up so much right there.
Yep. Awareness is going to be a big thing. We can talk more about it, but awareness is the basics of keep your eyes open and look around yourself. Look left, look right, do 360s, pay attention, but then also like watch your kill feed, watch your UI, right? What are your
Mhm.
abilities and health bar like, things like that. Could keep pushing that. Push it, right? You have that ult, or sorry, that you've won this fight. Right now you're just cleaning up. You're probably not gonna be able to kill the widow. Maybe you can just put a shield on her real quick. Probably not gonna be able to kill her, so I'd go and help with the Orisa. Um, so we just kind of leave our team to it, and then she's now getting healed, and then Lucio dies as a result. Could still be pushing. She's low HP if we're watching her health bar, but we're kind of just poking and poking. Go punch her and get up close. But now we've kind of overstayed our welcome and just not killed them fast enough, so they've started to get picks on us. And now we are down people. Alright, so we're gonna go over this in a moment here. Alright, so honestly, I think that right there was probably a move that would have been punished at a higher rank. So if you're up like up in silver or up in gold, which is where you're shooting for, so
Mhm.
typically you want to play as if you're playing up in those higher ranks. That move right there might have gotten punished. You were like inches away from death. Um,
Mhm.
and that would have caused you to stagger if you had died there, which you probably would if their team was just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit better, because the only person who pushed you was Reaper. If any other person pushed you, then you would have been dead. Um, so let's presume that you do die there, right? Let's just give it that
Mhm.
assumption. Um, are you familiar with the term staggering since you've played for a while?
Yeah. Just staggering our respawns, going out one at a time instead of grouping up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of get the general concept, right? And why it's bad is because when you die really late from your team, right? If you die really late from your team, notice how if we just died there, then we would be in spawn respawning by the time our team's pushing in, right? So now your team has two choices. Either they wait for you, in which case you've just wasted a bunch of time and let them push payload, or they push in without you, and now they're going to be at a disadvantage and they're more likely to lose this fight without you. In which case you also will probably lose the fight, and that's your impact on losing the fight. Staggers can also start stagger trains, where let's say you stagger and die, and then like two teammates push in by themselves, 2v5, and then they obviously die, and then two more teammates push in afterwards, and then they die, and then it just keeps going in a loop. Um, and
Yeah.
it'll keep happening, and you can give up like whole points like that, or even a whole
Yeah.
map like that. Especially I would imagine down in bronze, where people just kind of keep going
Yeah.
in one by one by one by one. But
Yeah.
that
It's kind of hard.
starts, yeah, exactly, but that does sometimes start with you. If you
Yeah.
break that link in the chain, then that can be the thing that helps your team regroup if you're not the one to stagger. So here that very easily could have caused you to stagger. So very simply, when you see that the fight is lost, because it was lost, let's see, when was it lost? So this fight was probably lost back here.
Mhm.
So you have to decide, can I get out or should I let them kill me, right? Um,
Mhm.
Honestly, if we start just running right now, you might have been able to get out. But like we do turn the corner here. Reaper's running after you. You're about to run into a corner. We turn around and block a little early, maybe. We grab the health pack. We try to fight it, right?
Mhm.
And I think Farah is about to die maybe in a second here, but honestly, I think it might have just been better to let him kill you. Because
Yeah.
then you just respawn in sync with your team, and you don't risk being really out of sync. It's probably just better to not even risk being out of sync with your team, because then you'll just be with them. And all, like, what's the downside? You mess up your KD a tiny little bit,
Yeah.
and you maybe give them like 5% ult charge.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you make sure you're in sync with your team. And then, like I said, if any of them pushed you besides Reaper, then we probably would have died here, because you got down to like 1 HP. And then
Mhm.
our team dates do come back, which is good. Um, we maybe push in a little bit far here when we're down, when we have like 1 HP. Look at your health bar, and you have
Mhm.
3 seconds left on that before it's disappearing. And we're pushing into them right now. Now we're stuck right here with 50 HP.
Yeah.
And then we're dead. All right. So, watching your health bar rate, that's part of awareness.
Mhm.
Um, let's. I would imagine that this would be a helpful thing to cover for your tank. So let's go over it. Let's go over a couple things. Go over a
Okay.
couple things. None of these so far are. They're all just kind of things to work on. I don't know if any of these are taking a top spot yet. We'll
Mhm.
get to that at the end. All right. So, let's talk about aggression scaling. When should you be pushing? When should you be backing up? So let's. I have a photo I'm gonna send you real quick.
Okay.
Nice little chart I made a little bit ago. Um, so this is aggression scaling. I have to open this up so the recording can see it. All right. So aggression scaling.
Mhm.
Aggression scaling is basically, it's a concept to help manage your aggression. When should you push? When should you back? And this is a tool for you to help understand it and understand the concept. Because maybe there's some situations where we're pushing when we should be backing, or we're backing when we should be pushing. And this will help you understand when you should be doing what. So, imagine your aggression is on a scale. 0% is super passive, 100% is super aggressive, and your neutral is 50%. Your neutral is typically where you're starting every single fight, because every single fight, at the beginning of every fight, nothing's happened yet. So therefore, you probably are playing around the 50. And that's not to say that you're just sitting around doing nothing. You're not 50 is not 0, so you're not just sitting there just kind of, 0% super passive would just be like fully backing up and sitting and hiding. Super
Mhm.
aggressive 100 is also not super aggressive, because 100% would be push, 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 sprinting into the middle of their team, right?
Yeah.
That's super aggressive. So your neutral might be like okay, I'm gonna push a little bit and then back a little bit, and then push a little bit and then back a little bit. I'm gonna shoot, I'm gonna pause, I'm gonna shoot, I'm gonna pause, right? So you're just kind of poking and prodding and waiting for something to happen. So you will go up this scale with advantages and with opportunities, and then you're going to go down the scale with disadvantages, a lack of resources, and with danger. So let's define a couple of those advantages and disadvantages, right? So we basically kind of covered this with advantages and disadvantages when we talked about watching kill feed, right?
Mhm.
Because kills are going to be very easy, simple advantage or disadvantage. So if you are up a person, you go from 50 to 60. Two people
Mhm.
go to 70. Three people 80. Five people, 4 people 90. Right? You just go up
Mhm.
the scale with the advantages you have. You're up people, you go up it. Honestly, it might even be a little bit sharper than that, because you can probably be at 100 at being up 2 or 3 people, right?
Mhm.
So, but that's the general concept. Go up a few every time. So maybe it's like you're up a person, you go to 60. You're up 2 people, you go to 80. 3 people, you're at 100, right?
Mhm.
Then it goes the exact same way, the opposite way. You're down a person, go to 40. Down 2 people, go to 20. You down 3 people, that's a 0, right? Go down to 0.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'll get into some more advanced I guess I'll just name them real quick. We don't have to go in depth on them, but
Mhm.
more. there's other advantages and disadvantages in the game as well, right?
Mm.
There's going to be things like which team has more health, which team has better positioning, which team has closer spawns, which team has and is using more ultimates, more abilities, things like that, right?
Mm.
Are
Mhm.
also going to be other advantages and disadvantages that can weigh up and down on the scale. Opportunities, those are going to be things like you see someone who's 1 HP, or someone who's out of position, or you have your ultimate and you're going to push in with your ultimate, right? So you can push to capitalize on those opportunities. You can get more aggressive.
Mhm.
Um, Lack of resources, so your resources are going to be things like your health bar, your on it depends on which form you're in. In your Omnic form, your shield. As your Nemesis form, I guess you don't really have resources in your Nemesis form, because you can infinitely block. So
Mhm.
it'd be like, I guess just in general, it'd be your shield, your health, and then also, do you have Nemesis form? Because remember, your Nemesis form gives you extra health, right?
Mhm.
So that's going to be another resource that you can use. So if you have those things, it's not going to mean that you can automatically sprint into their team just because you have those things. But if you
Mhm.
don't have them, it will drag you down the scale. So if you are 1 HP, you probably should be at a 0, right? If you
Mhm.
don't have a shield and don't have Nemesis, probably can't be pushing into the middle of their team.
Mhm.
Danger, that's going to be things like, do they have a bunch of ultimates? How many people are looking at you? You're going to be in a lot of danger if you have a diva bomb right next to you. Maybe not in a ton of danger if there's just like one person shooting at you, though.
Mhm.
It kind of depends. So with this scale, you're going to go up and down it. Sometimes it might be a little bit stagnant. So if, or static, I guess is a better word. If you just are at a massive advantage for the whole fight, then you might be at 100% for like 10, 20 seconds, right? If you're staggering their team, you might be at super aggressive for like 20 seconds. But it can also be dynamic at times. Let's say that you come into a fight and you're at your 50 neutral and you go, oh, that person's 1 HP. Let me push and get aggressive. And then you get headshot or they use an ultimate at you. And now you're 1 HP and you have to back out. So you just went from 50 to 100 to 0 all within like 1 second,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes this can be pretty dynamic, right? And this is a lot.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things. So hopefully don't feel overwhelmed by this. This is right now a little bit more informational, and you'll hopefully
Yeah.
be able to start applying this as you go. Um, why don't we get into a little bit after? Firstly, I'll ask. Uh, did that all make sense? Did you have any questions on that?
No, yeah, yeah, it made total sense. I get it. Yep, yep, yep. Mhm. I understand.
Cool. All right. Then let's talk really quickly about how do you apply this stuff, right?
Mhm.
And let's talk because we have some time here because we have 4 sessions. So let's go into how do you apply this stuff, but then also even before then, let's talk about what your general mindset on improvement should be. Um, let's get into that a little bit. So,
Okay.
how should you be looking to improve in Overwatch? And this kind of gets into a little bit of self improvement as well. Now, while you have me, I'll kind of be telling you how you should improve. But at some point, hopefully, I will release you like a baby bird, and you'll go and off onto your own into the world, and you'll be able to improve on your own because that should hopefully be the goal. That you wouldn't be, buying coaching from me 20 years down the road. So let's talk about how do you self improve. You will be able to do this really, and this is how I did it when I climbed. I started Overwatch in season 3 of Overwatch 1, and I started in Silver. And in about a year or so, maybe a year and a half ish, I got up to GM. And then after about maybe another year to year and a half ish, I got up to like top 50. And since then, I've peaked top 50 a couple times. I've been consistently top 500 across most of Overwatch's career. So, how did I do that? I did it through this method, this
Okay.
methodology. And this is also how I do, I'm going to give you the secret sauce. This is how I do my coaching with people. So let's kind of dive into it a little bit. The first step on this process is mistake identification. Now, this is something that you can do while you're actively playing or even in a replay, which is how I can do it in a replay with you. I can do it while you're actively going through. Replay can be a good idea if you ever wanted to do self replays, reviews, but it's not a necessity. I was kind of dumb and I just wanted to keep playing, so I never did that when I climbed. Never once did I ever sit down and do my own replay review. It was all I just did it while I played. So you can do it in between deaths, in between rounds, in between games, where you're trying to identify what mistakes did I make, because mistakes that you make are things that you can improve on. So identify your mistakes, but if you just end with your mistakes. So let me give you an example topic. Let's think deaths, because deaths are a very easy mistake to work off of. Everyone knows that they're mistakes, but those aren't the only mistakes. There's a lot of other mistakes, such as a tank, did you not create space? Did you let a teammate die when you could have saved them? Did you not get a kill when you could have gotten a kill? Did you misuse your abilities? Did you misuse your ultimate? Things like that. There are a lot of examples of mistakes. But let's start with deaths. So you can't stop with just thinking what is the mistake, because if I came into this coaching session and I said, "Oh, you're dying too much," and then I left it there,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't leave me a very good review, because that's not helpful. It's not
Yeah.
helpful just to say I died too much or I used my ability wrong. Well, yeah, whoop-de-doo, you did it, but now what? Like, how did you do it wrong? That's the
Mhm.
more important information. So, what would you say are some common reasons why somebody would die in Overwatch?
I mean, kind of like what I did a second ago. Overextending and
Mm-hmm.
just not being aware of the team if they're around you, they're staggering, things
Yep.
like that.
Yep, so that could be a few categories of things. So it could be overextension, just pushing too far. Could
Mhm.
be mismanagement of aggression, like we were talking about. It
Mhm.
could be aggression is very correlated linked to awareness, so lack of awareness. But that also, on other things in lack of awareness, could be things like not noticing someone who sneaks up behind you, or that you're not noticing that like three people are surrounding you, right? Things like that. Anything else come to mind?
Mm, that's it right now, top of my head.
Sure. Other things that it could be is like poor positioning. If I'm just like standing smack dab in the middle of the open, right, then they can all shoot at you and kill you. A
Mhm.
misusage of abilities, right? So if I accidentally put my shield over there, or I use it at the wrong time, or let's say I use my nemesis form, but I'm like too far away, and then I waste it, and then now I don't have it.
Mm.
Things like that. So
Mhm.
mistiming them or misplacing them can get you killed. Poor movement. So if I'm standing still or walking in a straight line, right, then that can get you killed. Or even just like flat up losing a duel, like poor mechanics, right, can
Yeah.
get you killed. Right. So those are all a bunch of different reasons why you can die. Right. So you died. That's the mistake. You notice, oh, I died because I was out in the open. That was the issue within the mistake, and then you want to find the solution to that mistake, right? So the solution is very often just it's usually pretty simple. It's usually just the opposite of what you did wrong. So if you died because you were out in the open, well, don't be out in the open, go take cover. If
Mhm.
you died because you weren't paying attention, well, then pay attention and you won't die next time. If
Mhm.
you died because you put shield over there, well, don't put shield over there, put shield here, right?
Mhm.
And solutions are pretty often pretty simple. Now, the application of the solution, which is the next step, that can sometimes be a little bit more difficult, right? Because it's well enough, it's easy enough said to not stand there, but to stand here. But actually applying that in game can be a lot more difficult. So how do you apply this stuff and put it into action? You will put this stuff into action really the same way you work on anything, and that is that while you're playing, you want to make sure that you're actively focusing on the thing you're trying to work on, and not just kind of playing to play or autopiloting, but you're And also not just purely playing to win, but playing to improve. And what that improvement will look like is you're going to come into a game and you're going to think in your head, you're going to pick out a topic. So let's say your topic is awareness because you're trying to pay attention more. So you're coming into the fight and the game and you're thinking to yourself, awareness, 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 awareness. Pay attention. Look around. Look around. Look around. Watch kill feed. Watch kill feed. Watch kill feed. Watch kill feed. Right? And when you give yourself that constant stream of reminders to pay attention to your surroundings, well, you'll probably be looking around a little bit more than you usually do. You'll probably be paying attention more than you usually do because you're actively remembering to. And when you do that, it'll make your awareness better. And when you do that for a certain amount of time, it will form it as a habit. And then once it forms as a habit, then it just kind of comes a lot more naturally. You don't need to think about it as intently. It just becomes natural to you. And then you can move on to something else to work on your list. And that's your improvement cycle. Final thing is just don't try to do everything all at the same time because that becomes overwhelming if you're trying to do everything. Instead,
Mhm.
focus on one category of things to work on or like 1 to 3 smaller things within a category as well.
Mhm.
And that is your cycle of self improvement. Identify the mistake. What is the issue within the mistake? What is the solution to that issue? And how do you apply it? Does all that make sense? Any questions
Yeah.
on any of it?
No. Yeah. Got it. Got it. You just gotta figure out what I want to focus on first, and just kind of apply it, and then go just one step at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Once we get to the end of the session, I'll give my recommendations on things to work on. But for the moment, let's keep going. Um, let's talk about crosshair placement. Is that a term you're familiar with?
Crosshair placement. I mean, I haven't heard of it. No, but I mean, I know, basically what it is, but I haven't heard that. No.
Gotcha. What is crosshair placement?
I mean, I'm just thinking of the crosshair I'm seeing on the screen right now. If I'm being honest with you, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure in terms of placement. Like, I mean, I guess you're talking about like kind of leveling it, like where it's always kind of pointing at their head,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
kind of deal.
So
Okay.
it's good because this is like generally speaking, right? This is kind of why you can self improve, is because a lot of like a lot of improvement is intuitive, right? It's kind of pretty crazy, like how we're created that like we are able to identify the mistakes even with like if that's not a term you've ever heard before, you're able to know, oh, it's probably best that I aim here, right?
Okay.
So why is that? So cross replacement, put that in my own words, is using your brain to help your aim. It's putting your crosshair in the best place possible to hit the easiest shots as possible. And like you said, the first major step to crosshair placement is aiming head level because if you're aiming down here, you're going to naturally hit body shots, and body shots, generally speaking, across most characters, does about half damage to people. Right? You're killing people about half as slow. In most cases, which is just not nearly as efficient. A lot of times you want to hit headshots. And if you're aiming down here, and this is where you default to, is you walk around looking down here. This will mean that you naturally will hit here, and you have to look how far you have to adjust to hit a headshot, which will make them much more difficult to hit. But
Mhm.
if we're just like over here, and let's say we're just doing you're doing your thing. You're shooting down a corridor, shooting into shields, shooting at people, and you're looking down here, you just naturally hit body shots. But if we aim up to here, then we're doing all the same stuff. We're shooting down a corridor, shooting into shields, and shooting into people, and we're naturally hitting headshots just because that's where you're aiming, right? And I can drag this around, and look at that. I'm already aiming head level, right? Um, Same kind of concept. Now, the next step to this is aiming where you know people are going to be. So, pre aiming. So, I know that there's a bot right here. So, I'm not going to just like come out and do like a slow pan and then acquire the bot. I'm going to turn the corner already looking at the bot's head, right? So that this
Mhm.
becomes a very easy shot to land. Same concept here, but these guys are on a slope. So the same way you would look down on a torb and up on a tank, you sometimes have to adjust a little bit, right? We're
Mhm.
going to adjust downwards. So then we turn this corner, it's very little adjustment to land those headshots. And it becomes a lot easier to land, right? So this guy right here, I turn this corner, already you're aiming straight at his head. And a lot easier shots to land. So this is going to significantly, if you're focusing on it and just making it into a habit, will significantly improve your aim, make it a lot easier. You'll be able to shred people much quicker, things like that. Now on tanks that you don't need to headshot,
Mhm.
aim body level, that's okay. Like on Zarya, you can't headshots, so aim here because it's the center of mass, the
Mhm.
easiest to land, right? But any character that can hit headshots, so Roadhog can hit headshots, Wrecking Ball can hit headshots, Orisa headshots, Mauga headshots, Junker Queen headshots, Doomfist headshots, Diva headshots. Really, most of your tanks. The only tanks who can't hit headshots are gonna be Sigma, Ryan, Monkey, Zarya. Right, those are your
Oh,
only
okay.
tanks that don't hit headshots. So across your majority of tanks, you should be aiming head level, right? So you can hit
Okay.
headshots. Um, all that makes sense. Any questions on it?
No, yeah, yeah, that's cool. I didn't even know that about the some tanks can't hit headshots. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean Reinhardt can't hit headshots with his hammer. Monkey can't hit headshots. Yeah, those are really the only tanks that can't. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Um. All right. Next step. Let's talk about some positioning. Now, let's just go over general positioning first. I actually haven't seen anything like explicitly bad with it yet. That
Mhm.
might just be because it's like chaotic bronze and it hasn't been punished. That's
Mhm.
gonna be a thing you'll notice a lot of the time is because you're kind of working with really low ranks. You might make a mistake, but they don't actually like kill you for it, right? So you might
Mhm.
make a mistake that should kill you, but then they just like don't kill you. So it's not as obvious. So as you rank up, more mistakes will kind of pop up. And that's why this is a cycle that you can continue to do all the way well up into professional levels, is because there will constantly be mistakes that go unpunished. Or new mistakes that will start to unfurl as you go higher and higher. So let's talk about general positioning. If I'm standing here and the enemy team is all standing right here, right, and they're all looking at you and shooting at you, and you're fine and dandy because I have a shield and I have Nemesis, but let's say maybe you run out of resources, or let's say that like three of them start ulting at you, and you go, oh, they're all ulting at me, and you try to run away. So it takes you 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind a corner. Now from here, you're perfectly safe, right? You have a wall and you cannot shoot through solid objects. So we're all fine and dandy. But in the time it took you to walk here, you ended up dying because it took too long. Whereas from
Mhm.
here, I can do all the same kind of stuff, but now it takes me half a second to duck behind the corner, right? Which is 6 times faster than over there. So,
Mhm.
therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, the further away I stray from it. And the great thing is the cover's all over the place. You have slopes like so. You have pillars like here, and I can reload it behind the corner in between shots, throw that real quick, play off of it like that. Use corners, right? Like I can play off of it in between punches, maybe. I can play around it to negate damage. Playing corners of tank is gonna be really critical. I can put my shield. You can, instead of just putting. I mean, as Ramattra, it's not as big of a deal because you have such a high health bar on it. Then you can
Mhm.
just put it here. But maybe on another tank like Reinhardt or Sigma, you can put it halfway in the wall, and that means that there's just less surface area for them to shoot at, which will mean you take less
Mm.
damage on it. You'll be
Mhm.
taking less damage. You'll be so not only does this keep you will this keep you alive, but you also take less damage, which is more self sustainability, right? Random objects like the payload, pillar, corner, doorway, right? It's all over the place. Cover is. On top of that, high grounds are also phenomenal. They can see you. Now they can't. They can see you, right? Now they can't. Right? So high grounds, as long as you're using them properly, act as natural cover, and therefore is gives you survivability and better positioning. On top of that, 2/3 of the characters in the game can't reach you unless they take the stairs, which takes an extra long time. And then the third that can get you needs a lot of times need to use abilities, which means they're expending abilities, all of which just gives you additional survivability. And then on top of that, we can see over here and over here, here. But when we're on a low ground, well, we can't see over there, can't see over there, can't see any of the high ground. So you on a high ground have a lot more visibility as well, right? So lots of great benefits from being on a high ground as a tank as well, or even just in general. High ground is going to be not just good for you, but good for your team and also the enemy team too. So if we take a high ground, we can push the enemy team off, negate their advantage and rip their advantage away from them, and give it to to yourself and your teammates. Right.
Mhm.
So high ground can also be space creation. By taking and maintaining them. But obviously, don't take a high ground if it's nowhere near the fight. It's not how all high grounds are created equal. This high ground right over top of the point is going to be pretty solid. But if you're using like that, well, there's like no cover on that. That's very wide out in the open. Or over
Mhm.
there, that's just too far away from the fight. Right? Any questions on any of
Gotcha.
that? That'll make sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about a bit of No Man's Land usage, right? And like I said, like you're a bronze player, right? So I'm
Mhm.
overloading you with information at the moment. There's just
Mhm.
so much that could be done differently, but don't feel like you need to do all of this simultaneously, right? I already said that.
Mhm.
Narrow it down, and at the end we'll narrow it down as well. So don't feel overwhelmed. There is a lot of stuff, and you can keep some of these things in mind while you play. But really, you should be only actively working on like one of these categories, not all of them
Mhm.
simultaneously. Um, let's talk about No Man's Land usage. So, um, choke points and No Man's Land usage. Is a choke point a term you're familiar with?
Yeah. 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 Mhm. Mhm.
So what is a choke point?
It's just kind of like that area off to your left right there, like underneath
Mm-hmm.
that bridge. If that was
Mm-hmm.
like just hypothetically the only point the team had to cross over, that's the
Mm-hmm.
choke point right there.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So you're able to identify one, really good. And what makes it a choke point is the fact that it kind of acts as a funnel, right? Where it's not this wide open area that they can cross through, it's this tiny little area that they have to squeeze through, right? And because it's an area that they have to squeeze through, our team can very easily funnel all of our damage right into this tiny little spot here, right? So I can just put a punch. If they're right here, I can just go punch, 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 and probably hit something, if anything, right? I can probably hit their whole team with it,
Yeah.
right? And that applies to every member of your team. Whereas if your team is spread out all the way over here, then they have to look in like 5 different areas. But your team only has to look in one area. Therefore, making this really bad positioning to be standing in. Because if you're standing in a choke, you're gonna be taking a lot of extra damage, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about how do you attack one and how do you defend one and how do you attack one, right? So let's say that over there, that's the point, right? And they have to push through this choke to get to point, right? So if
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
defending it and I stand up here, right, and my whole teammate's behind, right, and they're coming from over here and they're running at you,
Mhm.
do they need to cross past the choke point to win the fight and then cap the point?
Uh, I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
Yeah. So if you're standing right here
Yeah.
and the enemy team's standing right there and they're all looking at you and shooting at you,
Mhm.
to kill you, win the fight,
Mhm.
and then get the point, do they need to pass through the choke point? I mean, like they can
Oh no, no,
obviously
no,
they
no.
need to get through it to get the point, but
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
just say let's just keep it simple. To kill you and win the fight, do they need to pass through the choke point?
No, 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 no.
No.
You're getting blasted right there.
Yeah, right here. Right, exactly. You're getting blasted. This is just too far forwards. And in fact, if you try to back up because they're shooting at you, well, now look at who actually is in the choke point right now. They're not in the choke point, and you are now, and your whole team, right?
Mhm.
You're the ones in the middle of the choke, and then they're gonna shred you and blast you back, right?
Mhm.
Same thing if you're just like holding in the middle of it. So when you're defending, you don't want to hold in the front of a choke. You don't want to hold in the middle of a choke. You want to hold at the end of a choke because now they do have to push through it to get to the point to get to you in the point because they can't just kill you. You can just do this, and now they can't see you, and they're not going to kill you if they can't see you, right?
Mhm.
So they do have to push out through the choke point. But if we're holding this corner, we not only have cover, we're not only not in it, but we can also try to stuff them and keep them by pressuring them, right? Sitting here with a nemesis, we pressure them to stay in the choke point for longer, which gives them a disadvantage and therefore us the advantage.
Mhm.
Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now pushing through a choke point, because we don't want to sit in it, you want to try to push through it, one, using as much cover as possible. So instead of doing maybe like a wide swing here where they can just see you and shoot at you, maybe we do it from the inside, right? So they have less. But so you can use this as cover, and you're also trying to push through as fast as possible. So instead of sitting here, we're going to try to break out quickly and push and try to back them up, right?
Mhm.
Maybe use an ult to break out of it, right? Think something like that. So you um, try to push through it using cover and as fast as possible. Now let's take all of what we just talked about and translate that to no man's land because they're very similar. Is no man's land a term you're familiar with?
That one I've not heard at all.
Yeah. Now this is actually like I actually don't even remember if this is a term that because I've been using it for years and years and years. I don't even know if this is a term that I made up or if I heard somebody else use it at some point in some random coaching video. But
Yeah.
it's a war term is what it comes from.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a term that comes from war, right? And it's really any long open stretch of space where there's not a lot of cover that you can use. And if you try to cross it, you're gonna get shot at and die a lot easier, right? And
Mhm.
there's something that's actually is a term that comes from actual combat, and
Okay.
back in like World War I and in like trench warfare and things like that. But
Gotcha.
applying that to Overwatch now, um, in the game of Overwatch, you're gonna have long stretches of open space, especially a lot of times like payload maps or push maps. Any path that the payload or the push bot follows, if you're standing in the middle of that path, it's probably going to be a long open space where there's not a lot of cover, right? And therefore, if you try to cross this long open space of that cover, let's say their whole team's just sitting at the end of this and shooting at you, and you try to cross down the middle of this where I can't go to the right and really hide all too well, they're just going to shoot you. Um, you're going to take a lot of extra damage and probably die. So it's also really bad like a choke point because you don't have cover to work with, and therefore they can shoot you a lot easier.
Mhm.
Um, so if you're defending the no man's land, same exact concept. We don't want, if the point's back here, we don't want to stand here where they are automatically on top of you, and then you have to push backwards through this no man's land to get to point and to hold a defensible position. You also don't, so you don't want to stand in the front, you don't want to stand in the middle. Instead, you stand in the back, where now they have to push all the way through this open space to get to you, and your team can just spam them the whole time they're pushing in, right? And go pop, 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 bang, bang, bang. And as they're pushing, you just get so much damage in, and then you can engage them once they get up close to you, because they have to come to point. Um,
Mhm.
so it's the same exact concept, but also same exact concept on attacking it.
Mhm.
You try to do it as fast as possible and using as much cover as possible. So instead of just like run, you could maybe run down because this is honestly this example in the training range isn't the best example. There's a lot harsher ones on different maps. Well, you'll notice there's a little bit of cover here. There'll be spots where there's absolutely nothing, for
Mhm.
longer stretches or more wider stretches on certain maps, right? But from here, I can push from here to over here, and then from over here I can go block to over here, and then now I'm close enough to engage, right?
Mhm.
Or even maybe simply I could just like shield up here and then push using shield, right? Something like that. But you want to push you as quickly as possible and using as much cover as possible,
Mhm.
right? Um, all that makes sense. Any questions?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I guess it would depend more on like team comp if you decide like the strategy of like okay let's defend the choke or let's
Yeah.
defend no man's land.
Yep, exactly. So the
Okay.
team comp will dictate that a little bit, but then also you want to kind of flow with the fight as well a little bit. So you're
Okay.
right. A brawl team composition where you're playing close range characters might prefer the choke fight
Mhm.
where you're playing closer, whereas a spammy team composition might prefer to play back. But both kind of still prefer each of those like a little bit.
Mhm.
So you can also play it dynamically where you see them pushing and we come to here and just spam pew 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 pow 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 until they get to like here, right? And then once they get to here, then we can just back up and take this, and then by the time they get to here, they get to the choke, and then
Mhm.
we now have another no man's that we can shoot them from. So we don't
Mhm.
stuff them as hard, but that's just kind of because we also have a no man's land to work with. If the choke point was closer to point, then we'd stuff it. Like let's say this was point, then we would of course no matter what composition you're on, you're gonna stuff this right here because there's no man's land to push you because the point's right here, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's not like you're gonna stand on the back end of point. I mean you could
Mhm.
technically certain points will be like that, but then you could just position up here. So yep, team composition will dictate it a little bit, but then also just kind of the stage of fight and the flow of the fight
Yeah.
a little bit.
Got it. Got it.
All right. Let's do the wrap up review main points because we're coming to the end of the session. Um, ability usage, shield. There's like one time where we accidentally put it out here, but generally pretty good. You didn't hold on. I'll probably get into more depth of it later. It probably wasn't punished too hard where you're currently at, but so far
Mhm.
for the moment looked pretty decent. Vortex looked pretty decent. Nemesis. Um, Sometimes we're missing punches. Sometimes we're using it too far away where you can't reach. So remember that it has a range of 10 meters. So that's here, right? So from here to there. So
Mhm.
watching your range on it, maybe sometimes we're too far away.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe sometimes we're just like playing really passive with it when maybe you can push a little bit more aggressively because you have more resources. It's kind of your advantage, so we can play a tad bit more aggressive. Not super
Mhm.
duper, but you're punching stuff, so be in range to go punch stuff. Um, Overall, though, it's like a low to medium. Abilities is a low to medium priority for you to work on. Ult
Okay.
usage, I really only saw like one of them. And the big thing with ult usage is just like don't use it in won or lost fights, right? So
Mhm.
pay attention to that. But then also that kind of ties into your awareness as well, right? So
Mhm.
those kind of go hand in hand together. Overall, also like a low to medium priority.
Mhm.
Next comes positioning. Um, Positioning, make sure that you're watching your no man's land and choke points. Make sure you're using cover. Make sure you're taking high grounds. Um, Overall, honestly, it probably would have been better that like if we saw more of your gameplay. We didn't honestly go through too much of it, but it's
Yeah.
okay. This is the starting session. Honestly, now that we have a lot of this baseline stuff out of the way, we'll probably go through more of that stuff in future sessions. We'll probably have more
Mhm.
time to actually go through your replays and see a lot more. This was maybe a little bit more informational than you specific, but so positioning wise. Probably more around like a medium priority, but probably nothing too crazy. Next comes mechanics. Mechanics. Um, Pay attention to making sure you're aiming at head level, right? Crosshair placement, so at head level, aiming where you know people are going to be. We didn't really talk about it, but maybe we'll get into a little bit of target priority in the future.
Mhm.
Um, Trying to think if there's anything else. What push advantages, right? There are a few times where like we just kind of like let that Orisa get away when she was like low HP when we could have pushed it. But that also gets a
Mhm.
little bit into your like aggression scaling, right?
Mhm.
But watch the health bar, push it, be more aggressive. Overall, also probably a medium, maybe a lower end of a medium even. And then finally comes awareness slash aggression, right? These two kind of go hand in hand because you can't know when to push if you're not paying attention to what's happening because what's happening dictates when and when not to push.
Mhm.
So you gotta pay attention. Pay attention to your health. Pay attention to the kill feed. 1 to 2 is an advantage or disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. If you've won the fight or lost the fight, don't use ults. If you've lost, Don't stagger. Get out if you can, and if you can't, let them kill you.
Mhm.
Pay attention to team compositions because team comp dictates play style. I would recommend press tab at a minimum once between every fight so you can see, did they use ults? Did we use ults? Did we swap characters? Did they swap characters? Um,
Mhm.
team comp dictates playstyle, like we said with the Mercy. So watch, for the Mercy and her reses. Pay attention. Don't like walk around your map doing like a slow pan. You want to do like 180s a little bit, right? Look around as you're walking through. Pay attention. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open, and then all of that will translate into therefore how should you be pushing, right? When do you push? When do you back? Not gonna repeat all of it. You have the chart, but it's watch your aggression scaling. 50% neutral, 0% passive, 100% aggressive. You go up with advantages and opportunities. You go down with disadvantages, a lack of resources, and danger. And all of that probably goes to like your medium high, or maybe even maybe a little bit lower end of a medium high, but that's probably the most important one. But it is a big category, so break it down if you need to, right? Maybe simply start with watching kill feed, right?
Mhm.
Things like that. Overall, the number one was awareness slash aggression, which also kind of gets your ult usage in with that too. Um, Number two was positioning. Number three was mechanics. Number four was ability usage, and then ult usage, since it kind of just ties in with the awareness slash aggression if you're watching kill feed. So, um, not too much to talk about for that one. Any final questions?
Oh yeah, I think it was really cool. I was watching another one of your videos. I think we were helping out a tank, and yeah, I saw the scale in that one as well. So it's just kind of cool to see like what you're talking about, like applied to my play
Mm,
style and all that stuff,
yeah, cool,
and
cool,
just
cool.
implementing it.
Yeah. Hopefully, in the next one, we'll have more time to actually go in the replay and like see it in action, right? So maybe we'll go into the replay and like instead of just talking about it conceptually, I'll show you like, this is where you were playing at a 30% and you should have been at a 70%,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
kind of thing. So we'll have more time in the next session for that. This one, kind of getting rolling on a few concepts. All right. Anything
For
else?
sure, man. No, man, I appreciate the help. I'm looking forward to it.